You're listening to
Beyond the Gates Tea, the podcast.
Welcome to Beyond the Gates Tea, the podcast. I'm your host, Cornelius, and you are stuck with me for at least 2 more years because CBS renewed our show for season 3 and 4. Hats off to the cast, crew, and creators of the show, and also you. Fans of Beyond the Gates are flipping to CBS at 2 p.m., streaming it on Paramount Plus, posting daily recaps and reactions to the show, buying up those Chelsea Cat bags, and even doing podcasts like this one. And if you think about it, soap operas are a genre many once considered on the way out. Big media personalities like Oprah Winfrey and Andy Cohen both publicly said that they were fans of soaps, but doubted the genre could survive. When All My Children and other shows were canceled, people thought this was the inevitable end for daytime drama, replaced by much cheaper to produce reality TV. But Beyond the Gates has determined that was a lie. And the bottom line is, as long as Beyond the Gates continues making money, the soap will be on for years to come. Now, earlier I mentioned fans who are posting daily recaps and reactions to Beyond the Gates. I'm one of them, clearly, but I'm not the only one. I'm not one of one. Well, I am one of one, but My guest today is Ed Talks TV. I follow him on TikTok. He's been a fan of soap operas for years. He loves Erica Kane, played by the phenomenal Susan Lucci. He even has a dog named Erica. You hear me talk about that in our interview together, our conversation. It wasn't really an interview. Anyway, here's my conversation with Ed. It starts off with him talking about Beyond the Gates' renewal. And just listen, he has such great insight on all of this. Oh, and before I forget, got to thank the folks who were in my intro you just heard. That was Brianna Roberts, who plays Allison, TBD if we're going to see her again, Timon, who plays Bill, Ariel, who plays Naomi, and Jen Jacob, who plays Ashley. Now, here's my conversation with Ed.
I was not surprised, only because that's how CBS kind of rolls when it comes to their soaps. Y&R and Bold and Beautiful both got 2-year or multi-year pickups. Days of Our Lives, actually, the last renewal was a multi-year pickup. So I was happy mostly just because we've been kind of sitting on pins and needles with the CBS making their fall scheduling announcements, which was really weird this year because they just dumped a schedule online in April and not like they usually do in May for upfronts when they make the big announcements. So the only show that they hadn't made an announcement about was Beyond the Gates. So it was more the anticipation of whether they were going to do it soon or if they were going to wait until, because I think last year they announced the renewal like sometime in May. So that was the only surprise that they did it so early. But I was like, the multi-year renewal made sense to me just because of how they've been doing with their other soaps.
And you're one of the creators who you really do talk about the storylines. So do you think this was a mix of, because I think in my video, or the last time I talked about this was on Wednesday, whenever it was announced, but storylines aside, like the show's making the money. So what storylines do you think are keeping fans tuned in, are keeping advertisers saying, you know what, we'll buy a slot from you on this streaming, or we'll buy a slot from you on CBS at 2:15? What do you think's the appeal and the draw?
I think one was Anita's cancer storyline, because it kind of, happening towards the end of the year, it sort of shifted the tone of the show a bit. And what I noticed watching the show was that while there had always been pharmaceutical ads within the show, they were now doing more cancer pharmaceutical ads. So I think that one helped because, they pay good money for those spots. The other thing I think was that, at least I'm going to take a wild guess at, was Haley's storyline, because it became a very entertaining storyline. the shift for that character from what it was early in the year. And then, doing this, she's a scammer. She's trying to kill Bill. She became a more engaging character. And people, I think, at least for myself, it was like, oh, what's going to happen? What's she going to do next? And, learn, her connection with Randy and all that stuff. But I will tell you, one of the things that I also think helped with the renewal, and I'm going to be very contradictory to myself from last year. I always felt that them filming 4 months ahead as a new show was somewhat problematic because you didn't get feedback and you couldn't turn around and adjust stories or characters based on feedback in a timely way, the way, like Y&R and the other shows can. But because they've already shot the Cotillion stuff, they had already shot the Cotillion stuff, and they had already shot the Young and the Restless crossover stuff, and cut it together and was able to show CBS those stories. I think that also helped as well. So the 4 month thing actually worked in their favor. I believe. I think it really did work in their favor because they were able to say, look, we can do these big events, and I'm guessing they're really good. And CBS was like, yeah, and the head of CBS was like, you know what? Let's just do it. And, they had probably also laid out a plan, like this is what we can do in the next 2 years.
I was going to bring up the Anita, the Chelsea Cat bags. Like, this is the first soap opera, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first soap opera that has had a product in their storyline and then in real life made it a product and it sold out. Like, you can't get any of the bags right away. You have to pre-order like 3 of them.
Oh, no, I was going to say, yeah, you're right. Like, I think, ABC, like in the 90s, you're probably too young to remember this, but in maybe the early 2000s, they used to, they didn't promote it within the shows, but they used to sell, like you could buy, a character's dress. You could do, or jewelry, like what was worn in the show. Viewers could, then they would, you could go online or, however they did it and order it. But I do believe you're right. This is like the first time where it's like where there's actual product placement within the story that then you can go and buy. And it's not Febreze or, Tide or anything. Right. It's something that like, that people want. And I had been saying, pretty much since the show started, I was like, you guys need to just do like a Beyond the Gates boutique where people can buy the accessories, the fashions, because I was like, the aunties will buy everything that Anita wears. You could put, all of Anita's wardrobe up and they would buy it. So I think the Chelsea Cat, you're absolutely right. Like, having a product that's in story, and the young woman who is actually the designer, having her on the show. And, I think it all, like the synergy of it all just worked. And like you said, it's all sold out and you just can't get it.
Yeah. Okay. You touched on a storyline that we had this past week. Let's talk about Haley, Randy, and Lynette. Do you think Lynette's really dead?
I hope not, because I really like that character. But, some people have said, well, they think Randy's holding her somewhere. And I'm like, okay, that, is a feasible soap opera thing. But like, what's the end? Like, if he is holding her somewhere, like, what's the end game? That he just has her somewhere until they kill Bill, can get the $10 million and get away. And then like, they just, and then she just goes free. So I kind of think she might be dead. The thing that keeps swirling around in my mind is that we've had like 3 deaths. If she is indeed dead, we've had like 3 deaths that have happened off screen. The thing that's a little different about Lynette, though, that I've been thinking about is they might not have wanted to show a black man committing violence against a black woman. So that's why it was, scripted the way it was. But I mean, I just, I think it's great that they've got us debating about it because, it's keeping us engaged. And because the actress is so good and she
really is. performance.
she came in fully committed to that role. I feel like they knew who Lynette was when they wrote it. She knew who Lynette, she had a good sense of who Lynette was and how she wanted to portray her. And it was one of the most seamless new recurring characters that they've done in the last year, and they did it, and it's just been really good. So there was a part of me that was like, this woman could stick around Fairmont Crest for a while and stir up a lot of trouble, and she was a really good complication to the Haley story. I just, it's just kind of like, Beyond the Gates doesn't seem like that show that does the secret rooms and that kind of stuff. So it's got me, I'm just kind of like sitting on the fence of whether she's dead or they're doing, I'm holding her somewhere until we can finish our little scheme to get rid of Bill.
And speaking of that scheme, do you think it's actually going to happen? Because if Haley's secret is found out, then her character is essentially done, right?
Right.
This is the end of the road. And I think they like Marquita too much. They like Haley's character too much to just write her off the show after Bill finds out, oh, she was scamming me and didn't love me.
So my theory is that every time Haley got sent out of her own living room, when Vernon and when the various Duprees came by to talk about their crimes, that Bill is helping them cover up, that Haley was actually around the corner listening, the way she was when Danny went over to tell Bill about Anita's cancer. And so I feel like them showing her listening to that conversation was intentional, because she's probably been listening to all those conversations. So if her feet are held to the fire, she can pull out I would hate to have to go to the police or go to the press, more so the press, about what Martin did. And that keeps, Bill at bay.
Yeah.
At least that's kind of that's the way that seems like the easiest way to get her out of, trouble.
And keep her on the show. Yeah.
Yeah, keep her on the show.
I love this. This is why I love you and all the other Beyond the Gates creators, because that didn't even cross my mind. Like, I knew she had been eavesdropping, but that is a viable way to keep her on the show. If Bill finds out and she says, you better not tell anyone because I have this, and this on you for helping the Duprees cover up their crimes. Yeah, it's so smart. Right. And
the super interesting thing about Haley, too, is that she does work at that law firm. So who knows what other information she's, been gathering because when they told us that I don't know if you caught this a couple of days ago, but they've been doing this her and Randy this has been a 2-year venture. Mm. So, who knows what, between the law firm and, the possible eavesdropping, who knows what Haley could have in her arsenal on Bill individually and now on Bill and the Duprees. So I think there are probably a few ways they could go to keep her out of prison.
Yeah.
And keep her viable on the show.
Okay, we brought up the Duprees. We got to start with Anita's good news and Vernon's maybe not so good news. Are you happy the Anita cancer storyline is going to wrap up? And what do you make of them hinting that Vernon is having memory issues now?
Oh, well, first, Anita, I am happy that we're moving into another state, because it's like cancer never really wraps up, like in life, cancer never really wraps up, but you go through you go through a new period of time, and I think that they've done such a good job of, portraying the initial, the testing, the initial diagnosis, the treatment. And now, it's like, okay, the treatment is working. So now we can move on to the next stage of, like the lumpectomy. And then, and then it's kind of like, okay, care from there, like what, it's like, okay, we'll see you every 3 months or, so then it's not like it's not something that as viewers, we have to deal with daily. As writers, they have to deal with, constantly, but it's something that's still in the in the air because they know, that she's been through this, and and then we've also got the Danny and the Naomi of it all. So it's something that'll still live within the fabric of the show. But I'm glad that they've done a good job, and they didn't like. It hasn't been like a year-long story. So I think that would have just been too much for viewers, because it's such a real thing that so many people in life deal with. Look, I can't take another medical story with Vernon and Nita, only because it was just like the Nita thing was so heart-wrenching. But there's a part of me that like, well, it does make sense that a man. Now, I don't know how old Vernon is supposed to be, but his portrayer is 80, about to turn 81.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they would touch on, some memory loss that could be just, due to stress. I don't think it's going to be a huge story. I think it's like a touch point in Anita's story, but I don't really, I can't see them doing like a Vernon dementia story, Alzheimer's story this closely within the Anita story. So I think it's going to be kind of a, you need more rest. At your age, there are things that you can do, like do more Sudoku puzzles, do more, things we can give you. There's some vitamins or medication we can give you to help you because, you are a man of a certain age. So I think it might be more of a PSA type of thing versus a full-fledged story. That's what I'm hoping.
I had said that perhaps this is like a potential off-ramp for Clifton Davis, because
I saw that video. Yeah,
he'll be 81 this year, and I don't know, maybe he doesn't want to work forever. Like, he's been working since his 20s, and inevitably we all have to die. And wouldn't it be nice if there was a way to build in his eventual demise in a natural way, as opposed to, oh, Vernon went upstairs. Oh, he passed away. If Clifton, stays on the show. But, that's just my wishful thinking, because I feel like Beyond the Gates has been really, there's been it's been more realistic than the soap operas of the ones that I watch, like Days of Our Lives, right?
Yeah, right.
That's why it's so hard to believe that Lynette is stashed somewhere, even though I want to believe it, because I didn't touch on this, but no, Dominique Madison is excellent. And she comes with a built-in audience, right? She has like 251,000 followers on Instagram. So she's known, right? But going back to Beyond the Gates being like more realistic than the other shows, I could potentially see Michelle saying, yeah, let's build this in, because soap operas are long. We're going to be around for a long time. And this is an eventual storyline we're going to have to do. But hopefully not for many years.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that, like, even if it's just like, just a kind of a beat that they're playing for Vernon right now, that, oh, his memory's a little not what it was, that it does lay the foundation for if Clifton Davis decides, you know what, this is, like, the good thing about the way they shoot now, they shoot all these shows now with the block taping, is that, they can have him come in, 1-2 days a week, shoot, his scenes, and, that could, that could be a lot of episodes. Those scenes could be, spread out among a bunch of episodes. So, it might not, it's not like super grueling the way they used to shoot these shows where they'd be doing 12, 16-hour days. But, they'd just be, shooting them from beginning to, one episode a day. Now they're shooting, like multiple episodes. But yeah, I think you're right. It could be an off ramp. I was kind of concerned that we did get a patriarch at this age, just because, you're thinking, like, this show should be on for like 40 years. And, and it's like, but, age is different now, when, like Days of Our, you watch Days of Our Lives, like what are they? The Hortons, Mom and Pa Horton. They were probably like in their late 30s, early 40s when that show started, but,
yeah.
As a matriarch and patriarch. So, but, like, 50 is young now.
Yeah.
So, maybe again, it's a beat that they're laying this foundation for something later on in case they need to. But, like after year 4, he might say, you know what, I got to, like this is
Right. I'm
At that
85.
point, you're 85, right?
I want to go back to LA and live out my life there where it's mostly sunny all the time.
Right. Yeah. So I think you probably have a better, I think your assumption is probably spot on.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. We have some Dupree adjacent storylines to talk about. One involves Nicole directly. So, I mean, it is a Dupree storyline now. The plasma ring. Like,
Right.
This is like, I want this storyline to wrap up. I think I've said a few times, I don't really care. Like, it doesn't interest me. And I take a lot of umbrage, I think that's the word, with how Smitty is acting as a journalist. Like, first off, you're working with a cop. And there's a difference between, like, as a journalist, cops would send me tips like, hey, we're here now. Like, you all should be here. That's all I can say. But none of this, like, we did not covertly meet up in an alley. So it just feels that for me, and I guess it's because of my life experience, this has been the most unrealistic storyline for me, that there's a journalist and a cop working together so closely. But what do you make of what's happening with Jacob and Nicole figuring out, well, it's either Smitty or Naomi who did this,
Right.
and poor Ashley, who's caught up with the Impaler storyline, and her telling Nicole that Smitty and Naomi were in her office unknowingly. What's your take on this entire storyline?
It's like weird because, over the past week, it's now become an umbrella story because, where it was once isolated to Smitty and Jacob, it's now, branched out to, started to include Ashley, started to include now Nicole, which I think gives the story bigger stakes and bigger jeopardy because, we saw Leah sending Malone after Nicole. And, so that because she needs, because Nicole did tell her the page that was pulled up on her computer, that it was a page of, about the lab techs. So, and Leah, we know, is a very smart person. So it's like, okay, the focus can't be on that. But I've got this doctor who has had a couple of computer breaches. So let's, move the focus over to her. Mm-hmm. So I do like that they, kind of wrap Nicole up into it. It's been a wonky story for me. I don't understand the brick wall thing. Like, I don't understand that. Like, I don't understand that part of it. I don't understand. They haven't, for me at least, really verbalized why this is important, why the plasma ring is important. I think part of it is because they talk about it happening to like homeless people where, there's a van going around and, and I'm assuming they're like, are they giving them like $20? Are they giving them, like how are they, are they just snatching them and taking their plasma, taking their blood and then throwing them back out? Like it's one of those things where there seems to be more questions than answers to. And, I had said, I think I might've said it on Blue Sky, had they had June, like I have feelings about June, but had they incorporated her into that story where, she wanted to do something really big for Samantha for this cotillion, and she, was selling plasma to, in order to make some extra money because, her paycheck at Orphe Jeans couldn't do it. She was trying to look for a way, and then, maybe she gets an infection because I'm assuming the people taking the blood aren't doctors and nurses. Yeah. And they're, and so you show us that there's this jeopardy that it poses to the people that this ring is targeting. So it's just but right now it's just not, and it's just not landing in a way that makes, I don't think it's landing in a way that makes people care enough
Mm-hmm.
We joke about Jacob being a bad detective, and or at least I do. It's like, well, that's a cornerstone of daytime soaps, is that the cops aren't very good at being cops, because if they were, then we wouldn't have a bunch of criminals running around, causing chaos for, our characters. But like you said, the thing with Smitty being, like,
Yeah.
like the way he's involved in it. I don't know. I kind of think had it been structured a little differently, it could have been a little bit more compelling. Jacob saying that he's telling Naomi that he's close. And it's like, Jacob, you're not even allowed in the warehouse. Like, how close do you think like, how close do you think you are to solving it? And then the idea that, like, Elon put Jacob, who has never done undercover work before, out in the field undercover with no backup, where he rarely reports back in to anyone, just is it's just
Yeah.
it's just a wonky story for me, with a lot of questions, and it's just like, and it's like, until Grayson's going to get stabbed this week. But again, this story in the moment really hinges on Grayson and Leah, who are characters we just met at the top of the year. So it's just kind of like it's like, it's turning into an umbrella story. I hope the stakes get heightened to the point where we're kind of sitting on the edge of our seats, worried about characters that we really care about. But I will say, the one thing that it does do is, Jacob and Smitty as actors and as characters, they have so much chemistry with one another that, and I joke, about them being romantic, but
put them together, because this whole Naomi now being upset about her husband is like a 180. Yeah. She went from not wanting to be near him because he wanted to get her pregnant to now she is so worried about him.
Right. So it's like, so it's like one of those things where you're kind of like, in a year, could they just open up a, like, detective, Jacob and Smitty just open up a little detective agency, hire Kat, and we get a great, little fun place where people, are trying to solve some mysteries. But yeah, this story for me is just a little wonky. And I hope that, they play, and I know that, like, Michelle, having worked on Santa Barbara, General Hospital, Bold and Beautiful, these writers are good at, like, taking a story that isn't necessarily working and pulling it together towards the end. So I'm hoping that that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, we'll get a good resolution, and I've predicted it's going to be in May. Obviously, sweeps, but also the woman playing Leah, they announced she's going to be on the show for 20 episodes, and I haven't been counting, but it's getting up there, right? Yeah. Also with Nicole, she and Ted had some scenes together, and then Danny and Bill had some scenes together. What do you make of the Dupree daughters and their ex-husbands, and how one of them can't seem to get away from him, and the other one, I feel like she reminisces, but I think she's over Ted.
Yeah, that Uptown scene for what was it was for the celebration, for the Chelsea Cat celebration, where they were together. I was kind of like, now Ted could not function in a rotation with Kyle and Carl. Like, he would not participate in that. But I do wonder if they're laying the ground for, like, this push and pull between Ted and Nicole at some point, like later in the year, where, they're able to, now they're able to get along. They're having these conversations with one another. Ted is, struggling with the whole Shanice of it all. Because I was thinking about the Shanice stuff, and I'm like, yeah, of course she's wondering if you love her. You're romancing her in a way that would lead one to think, this guy really likes me, and she's probably falling in love, obviously at a quicker pace, than he is. But it makes sense that she's, having those questions. But I think that, like, having him and Nicole be closer and friendlier, makes it more, because we can't just have happy couples, running around,
Right.
Ted and Shanice need something. So I think, and because they've established that Shanice has some insecurities about Nicole,
Yeah.
that, Nicole's so graceful and beautiful that then that becomes more interesting for the audience, because I think there's probably like a group of people who would like to see Ted and Nicole work their way back together, because we really didn't see either one of them fighting for their marriage the first time around. And then there's there might be a group of people who like Ted and Shanice, so want them together. And because all the characters are pretty likable in that scenario, it makes it, it's not like it's different than like a Ted, Leslie, Nicole triangle,
Right.
where you're basically rooting, most people would be rooting against Leslie. As far as Danny and Bill go, I suspect that they're going to be in bed sooner rather than later. That these three kisses that they've had over the course of the last few months, and these lovely conversations that they've been, participating in, and the, Babygate. I don't know if, it happens during the cotillion stuff, if it something big is supposed to happen during the Y&R crossover that impacts, a lot of people. So, is it like where lives are put in danger? And, like on soaps, when lives are put in danger, it makes people, do things, especially on soaps. People tend to like have sex. They have grief sex, so, but I just can't imagine that they're writing all these moments for Bill and Danny just to show that exes can be friends and cordial to one another.
Yeah.
I suspect it's going somewhere. And I'm, I can't get over how he treated her last year.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning. So it's hard for me but they do have so much chemistry. The actors do have so much chemistry together that it's like one of those things that's like, I kind of want to see it, but Bill needs to like still pay for the way he treated her.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of cordial, we had Kat and Eva at the table together, taking pictures together. I think that was the best moment of this week.
The picture took me out. I was like, wait a minute, she's even taking pictures with her.
And they played it so well, because I've said before, all Eva wants is to have a sister. And she wants to have a sister like Kat. And the way Amber's face it was like all the wanting, you could see everything she wanted was happening for her in that moment.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate part is the next day, 2 days later, they're back at it, fighting over Isaiah. But I just think it's unsustainable to have them two at each other's throats, and finding out that the actor who plays Tomas is now recurring, even though he wasn't around a lot anyway, to be in my opinion, on contract. And I've met him. I think he's very nice, but on the show, he has not been that interesting at all until this last month or so with the whole Lynette of it all. So I think it'll be interesting to see if Tomas is taken out of the picture, will Eva and Kat be sisters?
Eva wants absolution, and Kat's like the final piece of that puzzle. And at the birthday party, when Kat, and I was like, you know what? I don't blame her for kind of assuming, because remember, at this time last year, Kat didn't know what Eva was up to. She just had a feeling about Eva, and then Eva accidentally showing up to her birthday party, last year. So when it happened this year, I was like, well, I mean, that's kind of like the response you'd expect from Kat. But when Eva was going to leave, and then she turned around to say, I'm glad your grandmother's better. For me, the way I interpreted it was that she weaponized that piece of information to make herself look good in front of the people that were there. That Kat was being mean to her, but Eva was showing kindness. And then Kat was able to go in that moment, oh, you know what? Have some cake, stay and have some cake. So they both, are able to do this kind of like ping pong with one another. And then the stuff at Orphy Jean's on Friday was it was like, that's kind of, for me, that's what I think they should just be. It's like, just like, be cordial enough. Like Eva, she summed it up perfectly. We can be cordial enough not to make the people around us uncomfortable. And I guess for me, I also think, like, I'm not one of those people that thinks just because you have a long lost sibling that you have to be close to that person.
Yeah.
So,
especially if you weren't raised together, and how she came to town.
Yeah, and I also, like, it's been, all this time, it's been less than a year. That's, and on top of things, Eve, I said, I think in my recap on Friday, that Eva doesn't have the self-aware, she doesn't like, she thinks Kat, and even though I didn't think Kat was flirting with Isaiah until Kat said she was flirting with Isaiah, because it felt like their normal interactions with each other. But even if Kat was, she's flirting with Isaiah, Eva should have the self-reflection of, oh, this must be how Kat felt every time she found me with Tomas, in my hotel room doing our little book club, or the fact that, like, she caught us after we slept together and I treated her like she was the other woman. Like, for her, like, if she could have that moment of self-awareness, I think that would go a long way with people like me who struggle with, like, again, love Amber, love the performance, but I struggle with Eva because she's her mother's daughter. Like, and I just see, I see little Leslie's coming out often with her. And, she can call it when she sees her mother do it, but she doesn't seem to recognize it in herself.
Yeah, I get that. So you're of the camp that Eva and Kat can be cordial and not make the people around them uncomfortable. And that's how they can exist on the show. That's
how I think they can exist. And, I always go back to, I don't know if you ever watched All My Children, but Erica Kane and Brooke English, like, enemies from the time Brooke found her way into Pine Valley. And, they fought over men, and, Erica always would accuse, she's like, oh, you like my leftovers, because it seemed like every time Erica broke up with a man, they, ended up putting him with Brooke. But there were moments where they would come to, like, for a common, I love it when women on soaps who are enemies can come together for a common cause. So, like, when Brooke murdered the man who she thought, was, like, going to do something with her son, her young son, and she shot him, and it didn't look good. Like, the trial wasn't looking good, and Erica was like, take your kid and get out of town. Like, take these passports and get out of town, and, and hugged her. And, like, so there were moments where Erica and Brooke could, like, coexist, and, they were in a plane crash together and in the jungle, and they had to work together they were being, like, held hostage or something, and they had to work together to, rescue themselves. So, like, that's the kind of stuff I like to see, but they would never, like, up until the final episode, they were never like, oh, we're going to be, best friends forever. It was always like this frenemies thing where it was always entertaining to see them in scenes together because you never knew which way it was going to go. And I think that, like, that's kind of what I would enjoy with Kat and Eva. My guess is that, because they keep teasing, like, a big story for the two of them this summer, is that one of them is going to get hurt and one of them is going to need blood or an organ or, something. And, that'll be kind of their kumbaya, real, like, sincerity moment after the person comes out of, surgery and learns that the other person did for them. Yeah. And, they'll have, they'll be able to, show each other more kindness than, they have.
They've essentially hinted at that, saying you're never, like, there have been, I think
all the time.
Samantha has said it several times. Yeah. Like, something's going to happen where, and everyone has said it, but I think the writers really do favor Leslie and Eva. That's a different podcast for a different
whole episode
story. And so I think it's going to be Kat needing Eva in some way, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, it's going to happen. They've been talking about it.
And I think you're right. I think Kat's going to need Eva, and Eva will do it. Eva will do it. I think you get more drama had it been reversed, because then you get Leslie begging Kat, you've got to save my daughter. It'd be a redux of what Leslie did with Nicole with Peaches. But I don't know. I think you get more, because I think like the way they write Eva's Eva is going to do it. I think the way they write Kat needs a little bit. Kat needs a little bit more convincing.
Push or something.
Yeah.
What the last thing I want to talk about? No kumbaya moments between Donnell, Deanna, and Vanessa or Joey. This is going to be crazy whenever it is revealed, because Vanessa is forsaking her friends, her family, for this man who orchestrated the murder of her husband. So what's your take on Deanna being on Vanessa's neck? Because I enjoyed it in the beginning, but I'm just like, okay, Vanessa, put your daughter in her place, even though you're wrong and you're lying.
So first I have to say, and apologies for not knowing her name, that young lady is a fantastic actress.
Angela Fairley, yes.
She's fantastic. Love, it's like, I'd love to see more of her. Since the Doug death stuff, I'm like, I've always thought Vanessa's kind of a terrible mother. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that it's going this way. I'm curious about how they're going to play this out with Joey. They got a bunch of criminals running around on this show who, like when they showed I don't know if you did see that video, the 2-year anniversary, the 2-year renewal video. And, Randy, the guy who plays Randy was there in that video. So, so like 4 months from now, Randy's still around. So I'm just kind of curious, how this all blows up. And I've often thought that Vanessa's going to end up in an orange jumpsuit, that the money laundering is going to catch up to her, and, she'll end up, whether she'll go to prison or not is a different thing, but like that she'll end up caught up in this money laundering thing. And that's going to be, and I thought that maybe that would be the thing that pushed her and Nicole back together, but they seemed to decided to reconcile that situation pretty quickly. So I don't know, it's one of those things where I don't know now that, and especially now that John Lindstrom's on contract, because had he still been recurring, I could have seen a situation. I mean, not that they can't do it with somebody who's on contract, but I wouldn't kill John Lindstrom off. I wouldn't, I think he's just so good at playing Joey. But had he still been recurring and been like, I like writing my books and I like going on my book tours and I want to live in California full time, I could have seen a opportunity where, Vanessa does find out, Donnell finds out, Deanna finds out, and somebody takes Joey out. Yeah. And Vanessa thinks it's Deanna and covers for her and, does that whole, we've seen it before on shows, and does that whole thing. Now it's kind of, I guess it's a good thing that we can't really predict it, but I don't know how it's going to play out. I think, and then like, does it play out in a way that Vanessa, because the way Nicole has called it, you're willing to put a man that you've only known for, a few months or been dating, Nicole doesn't know like the full thing, the full story, but ahead of your decades long friendship with her and, her children, at some point, and I think that Joey needs to be held accountable in some way for what he did to Doug. But at some point, it's all going to have to fall apart for Vanessa, for her to for her to get it, to get what she's been willing to sacrifice. And I've said, pretty much since the beginning of Beyond the Gates. This Vanessa, Joey, Doug story for me is probably the best, strongest written story thread that the show has done. Because now we're like at a year of this, over a year now of this story, and it's too bad that Doug's still not there. Like, he couldn't have been on a little longer, but it is a really fascinating story of Vanessa, this mobster, and how she went from escorts and all this stuff to being in love with Joey, willing to sacrifice her marriage, her children and her friendships. And so it's a really good story, and I think that and their name, Laura, right? That is her name. She's got a reel. She's got an Emmy. I've been curious as to if she's going to submit in lead actress or supporting actress, because there's an argument to be made that she was a lead actress on Beyond the Gates in its first year, and she could put together a really strong reel for the lead actress category. I think her supporting actress reel, she could put together the same reel, and she probably would have a really good shot at winning and supporting. But if she wanted to go for lead, I couldn't be mad at her for submitting in lead actress.
Yeah, I feel like I saw Lauren, that's her name.
Lauren, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I saw her, she posted on Instagram that she has already submitted her work, but it didn't say like what she was going for. But yeah, she has submitted. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, she, whenever we think of lead, we think of, Danny, we think of Nicole, we think of Anita. But yeah, Vanessa was in a majority of the episodes because Joey is just involved in everything. And it's because of that involvement. And I mean, he's a great actor, obviously. And he and Michelle are clearly friends. I've seen her post about him. And, whenever you've got a good actor like that, you just don't let them go. You just don't let them go in a way that's like, oh, well, he's going to jail now. Like,
I'm super curious if Michelle courted him, because she wrote for him on General Hospital. So I'm curious if she courted him for this role specifically, the way she did with Greg Vaughn for Kyle. And, it's like, oh, I know you're writing. He was going through his, divorce with Katie. So it was like, oh, you could, come do this thing, and you don't have to like make a big commitment because it's recurring. But because he had been on As the World, has a relationship with CBS because he was on As the World Turns, at a certain point they said, let's put this guy, on, let's just lock this guy down and put him on contract.
Yeah. Well, I think we covered everything for the last week of episodes. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about, Ed? Like, I'm really, I know that there are times that I criticize the show, but I really do enjoy it. I'm super curious. I cannot wait for the daytime. Like, I'm really curious as to how the daytime Emmys are going to respond to this show, because this is going to be the first. I mean, I'm assuming that Tamara, Carla, and Daphne all submitted, for in the lead actress category. But and again, because they got rid of the younger leading actor and actress categories, I think most of the actors on this show were the way the age parameters were. I think like Andre and I think they were too old to submit in that category anyway. Yeah, because they're all like around my age, like Andre. I'm still they're not like, young anymore.
Yeah, but like Colby and Amber, they should, they would have been contenders in the younger leading actress category. They would have had some.
Actually, no, like for the age parameters, because Colby, and I'm not calling them old, but Colby went to school with a friend of mine in Howard, and my friend's only like a year younger than me. So,
she's not like 24, 25.
No, I don't believe so. No, she went to Howard with my friend. She looks great, obviously.
Oh, okay. Because I think the cutoff used to be like 25. So, okay. Oh, wow.
No, I don't know about Amber, but I know for a fact that Colby is in her 30s at least.
Okay. Well, then
My
she could submit. She could submit. So they could submit if they could submit for supporting. I mean, that's what I would have. I would have had them. I mean, Amber. I mean, they'll either be rising. They'll either be either have been put up for Rising Star. I think that's what it's called, or I mean, because they were supporting. I mean, my guess is that Trisha that's where she submitted in supporting.
Yeah.
I'm going to be super. That's where I'm super. This is the thing that at this point I'm really curious about. I can't wait for the cotillion and the fact that they built a ballroom. Because my expectation was that cotillion was going to happen in the country club, like just in the, like in the restaurant that we normally see. But the fact that they actually built a, thing is impressive. But I'm super curious about the daytime Emmys because we've only had one Black actress win Best Lead Actress, and then she's not even really on Young and the Restless anymore. So and I think Debbie Morgan before her. Debbie Morgan might have been the only other Black actress to be nominated in the lead actress category. Wow. So I'm just really interested to see how this all lands for the daytime Emmys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't think Daphne had a lot of great moments to submit for lead. Besides the anniversary party, like it has nothing to do with her acting ability. It's just the storylines that she was given. Like
I agree with you. I'm just, just kind of like, if I were Carla, Daphne, and Tamara, those I would assume that that's where they would try to put together a reel for as leads. But I agree. Like I think that. Like even for Carla, like the wedding stuff, like I think that stuff might be too campy for voters. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Because it kind of comes off as kind of some of the stuff that like Susan Lucci submitted before she had her daughter, before the storyline with her daughter's anorexia, and that that's what she won for. Because she used to submit like some comedic stuff, lighter stuff, and that's she didn't win. She wasn't great at picking material.
You would think her agents would do that for them. Like, if you have an agent, they're supposed to go through your material and say, this is what you should submit. Yeah. It will be.
But I agree with you. I do agree with you. But I'm kind of just looking at, kind of like ego as well.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's my podcast. I can be honest. I think Trisha should submit for lead. Like,
I wouldn't be mad either.
She is one of the main actresses on the show. And honestly, I think, in my opinion, all of her work is the best on the show.
She could clip so this is going to sound wild. She could clip together Sherry Honolulu. Like she could literally clip together that stuff, the anniversary party, and her confrontation with Anita when she found out that she was Barbara's daughter, and she went over and Anita slaps her. Like she could literally, like if she clipped together that stuff, that's a super strong, even though, because she did really inhabit different characters every time she put on a different wig.
Yeah.
So she's got a really strong reel. Tamara, I think, has a strong reel if she does the Barbara letter, which when Anita reads Barbara's letter and we find out that Barbara committed suicide. And I just don't know if it's 15 minutes. It has to be up to 15 minutes. And, obviously the end of the year cancer stuff. So, but I don't know that there's anything really in between that. Yeah. Maybe some of the articulates, maybe some of the articulate stuff.
My thinking for Trisha is it has nothing to do with anyone's talent. It's just the storylines.
You have to think about what can you cobble together, for a reel, because it all comes down, and it all comes down to the reel. And there have been upsets where where people have won won daytime Emmys, and people are like, what, they're like, she was, where, they're barely on the full year, but they're able to put together a reel from a short storyline that wins them an Emmy. So you're absolutely right. It's really just about, like, if you have to just think about the material that the person was given over the, it's a January 1 to December 31 window.
Yeah.
And what were they given to do that they could put together a strong reel for?
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting just to see them at the daytime Emmys, and I hope that this year it's not a debacle like it was last year, because, clearly times have changed, and so they're streaming them. But I hope they get a little more respect than they did this past year, because I was seeing all the horror stories.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was just seeing all the horror stories about it online, how it wasn't well put together, and how they just were kind of like an afterthought.
Yeah, I didn't even watch. I watched the clips but the other thing for Beyond the Gates that I'm super curious about, because in my opinion, they should just go to the studio today and hand them Emmys for hair, makeup, and wardrobe. And so I'm also super curious about those categories, because, these people who are doing this is different than what voters are used to looking at in terms of hair, makeup, and wardrobe. So I'm going to be really curious to see how that works out as well.
We'll see if they like black fashion and black hair. Yeah.
And I think the two shows, well, we're in year 2 now. So I think, for next year's daytime Emmys, it's Beyond the Gates and General Hospital are running neck and neck for best drama series. And it'll be really interesting. We still got a long time to go for the rest of the year, but as of, April 19th, for Beyond the Gates to be this good in its second year, and I thought year 1 was a good year, it was good. It was excellent. That it really is, due to the fact that they put together, with Julianne and Carruthers, Michelle, the early group with Ron Carlivati and what's his name from General Hospital, the original co-head writer.
I forget. I know he exited.
Yeah, they really got the show off the ground in a really good way. I don't know how many shows you've started, soaps you've started from the very beginning, but, Beyond the Gates, I have to say, Beyond the Gates has done a good job. I started Loving from the beginning, Santa Barbara from the beginning. Passion's a show I could never really get into, but I did watch it from the beginning.
Yeah.
And Beyond the Gates exceeds all of those.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're here. And that's why there are so many of us making content about it. So if you don't follow Ed Talks TV, you should. You're on TikTok and Blue Sky. Yeah,
I'm Ed Kane on Blue Sky. So I'm not Ed Talks TV on Blue Sky. I'm Ed Kane. So Kane, like Erica, Ed Kane. So if you want to follow
all my children fan through and through, right?
Yeah. No, but thank you for having me on. I always love watching your videos and seeing your perspective on stuff, and your journalism background definitely shines through. So it's always and also Beyond the Gates has such an online community that is I'm not seeing it for other shows the way I see it show up for Beyond the Gates. So that's really just a testament to everything those guys are doing over there.
It really is. Well, thank you for spending some of your Sunday with me. Tell your dog, Erica. Oh my gosh, I just got it. Tell your dog, Erica, that I said hi. I'm glad she is feeling better. And talk to your mom.
Yes, and give your cat some treats for us.
We'll see. We'll see about that. See ya.
Okay, see you later.
That was Ed Talks TV. Find him on TikTok, Blue Sky, and maybe back on Instagram in the near future. Also, I gotta make a correction. Dominic Madison, who plays Lynette, as I like to call her, has almost 51,000 followers. So in my conversation with Ed, I was off by about 200,000 followers, LOL. Anyway, let's go to that preview for this upcoming week.
Next on Beyond the Gates.
After being married for over a year now, that you could call Danny baby.
Haley.
Bill's theory is that you started Babygate because you're insecure about our marriage.
Why the hell have you been ignoring my calls? I told you there was a price for your mess. Just didn't tell you who had to pay.
After the campaign, do I ease up or take on something bigger?
This could blow up your world. What are you doing, Martin?
You know, it would be more believable if we didn't know the whole situation, but Haley has to keep up the ruse that she loves Bill, so that's why she's making a big old scene out of him calling Danny baby. And I talked about this situation in one of my recaps. You know me, I'm not a fan of Bill and Danny, but I get the whole muscle memory thing. I was at a conference with my first serious partner. We were together for about 6 or 7 years. And in conversation, I called him babe several times. And no, we did not sleep together. I don't want to sleep with him. I don't want to be with him. But it's just a habit, you know, you can fall into because that was someone you were with for forever. So I get that. However, Andre does have a reason to be insecure about his marriage to Danny because she is always running to Bill and smiling in his face with those big old eyes. And it just, the writers, they are going to find a way to keep putting those two together. They might not end up together, but I think, if I remember the conversation with Dad, he thinks they're going to end up sleeping together just because they're always together. They've kissed 3 times since she's been with Andre. So yeah, I hate that for Andre. We knew someone was going to get hurt in the plasma ring storyline. Of course, we saw Jacob get beat up by Ren. That's his name. And now we have Grayson stabbed in the hospital stairwell. But isn't that going to draw unnecessary attention if he goes to get medical treatment? And finally, is Martin trying to reveal his big secret? We thought we were over this crazy idea of him running for Senate, which would bring even more scrutiny to his personal life. But no, he's thinking about it. He's talking about it clearly because Bill knew and he warned him. And now it appears his mom is doing the same. Okay, folks, that's all I have for you on this week's edition of Beyond the Gates T, the podcast. What did I forget? What did I miss? And as always, I love you for listening.